This aircraft does not land like any light twin general aviation aircraft I have ever flown. We're here today in Carnarvon Airport in the sunny hills of Wales in the Cessna 310R. It's an aircraft that's just been released. We're going to be taking you all the way through startup, taxi. We're going to fly a brief traffic pattern around this fabulous Payware airport, all the way to landing. As I say, the landing is certainly unique. You come in much faster and much steeper than I would expect you to, but having watched some great videos that the developer have put out, both in terms of a Twitch stream that they did and a YouTube video, I will leave links to both of those down in the description. Having followed the advice in those videos, she just becomes twitchy if you come in too slow. She's got a very, very robust landing gear underneath her, so you can hit the runway, you know, not like a stone dropping out of the sky, but a little bit more robustly, shall we say, than perhaps you would in a Beechcraft Baron or the 414, something like that. So let's get this aircraft started up. Getting our master switch on. I should say I've got the yoke switched off or hidden. I don't normally do that. I normally have them showing, but there's an odd quirk in VR that if I turn my yoke only by about 45 degrees, the animation for the yokes in the sim turn by 90 degrees. Now, the actual deflection of the ailerons is okay. It's as it should be. I get full range of motion all the way through the 90-degree turn on the yoke, but the animation for the actual yoke itself seems bugged. It's fine when I do it on a flat screen monitor, but in VR, it just turns excessively. Does not affect the performance of the aircraft at all, but it's very immersion breaking when I can see the yoke turning around quite erratically compared to what I'm doing. So we've got our battery on. We'll get both of our alternators on. We're on the main tanks for fuel. We'll get our props all the way forward. We're going to start with the left engine, so we'll go full rich on the mixture. We've got our priming button here. Again, another unique thing about this aircraft is you actually leave the primer on as you hit the starter switch. It's spring-loaded and it bounces back. So if we prime that left engine, give that 5 seconds or so, leaving the primer in that position. We hit, I'm going to open the window so that you can hear the engine noise, hitting that starter. And going full rich for our right-hand engine again. Hitting that primer over to the right, leaving it for 5 seconds or so. Hitting start. And the primer switch spring loads back. We'll get our strobe on. We probably should have done that before we started the engine. Nav light. Let's get our avionics on. We've got the TDS 750 XI in here. It's a fantastic add-on avionics, which I'll be doing a review of in the not too distant future. It's
system test okay.
Way better than the default avionics that you get, including the G1000. It's absolutely fabulous bit of kit, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. Get our taxi lights on, and I think we are good to go. We want to taxi with the mixture leaned. This engine has, this aircraft I should say, has persistence. So if you use it in what they call ownership mode, as the various components of the aircraft get wear and tear, over time, through lots of use, you can get failures. And taxiing with the mixture full rich does all sorts of not helpful things to your engine. So it's got a very, very, very detailed instruction manual this aircraft. It's a little bit dirty, you might be able to spot today. It could do with a bit of a wash, and again, that persistence in the aircraft applies to how clean or dirty it is. The more you fly it, the dirtier it gets. You can actually change the rate of how dirty it gets. There's even some rubbish down on the floor here. Somebody's left not sure if that's a Coke bottle or a Pepsi bottle, but that actually rolls around using the physics of the aircraft as you move it. It's yeah. Oh, I've forgotten to get the fuel pumps on. Oh, not high, low. They were very particular that they needed to go onto low. Should have done that just after I started the engines. Getting ourselves lined up here. Runway 25. It's a right-hand traffic pattern. It's an interesting airfield, this one, because it's in a bit of airspace in Wales where jets do low-level flying and manoeuvres. So all aircraft coming in for overhead joins have to stay below 1,500 feet. The traffic pattern for this airfield is a little bit lower than you would normally expect. It's 800 feet above the airfield elevation, so 200 feet lower than you would normally expect. Okay, I think we get our landing lights on. You can hear them extending down. That's animated. Can't see that from this perspective in VR, but that is animated. And give it a couple of seconds for those lights to come on. We're not going to retract the landing lights. We're doing a very short traffic pattern, so by the time we'd be retracting them, we'd be extending them again. Right, I think we're good to go. So applying full power. Airspeed is alive. T's and B's in the green. 90 knots, rotate. We're out of usable runway, so we're going to tap the brakes, and the landing gear is coming up. This aircraft has a tendency to want to pitch up. You want to keep her at 500 feet per minute until you're over 120 knots, which we are, so we're going to let the nose come up to 1,500 feet of climb. Get that window closed. Oh, getting a bit steep in the climb there, getting the nose down. Right, we're at 500 feet, so coming back to 25 inches manifold pressure, 2,500 RPM, and we're going to start our turn onto crosswind. So 800 feet for the traffic pattern at this airfield. You get there far quicker than you would think, so bringing the manifold pressure back to 2,100, 2,350. We've overshot slightly, but nothing to worry about too much. We can lose just that 40 feet or so of altitude. She's a fast aircraft, so it's a much wider traffic pattern than you would get in something like, say, a 152 or a 172. We're not going to spend long on our crosswind at all. Checking for traffic, there isn't any. Turning downwind. I don't know if you can see with the vertical speed, but this aircraft really wants to climb. I find every time I fly her, the nose just wants to pitch up. You're constantly pushing the yoke forward to fight against that pitching up tendency, always putting in trim to get her nose back down. The flap extension speed for the 15 degrees first notch of flaps is 158 knots, so we're already at that. So once we're abeam with the threshold of the runway, we can get that in. It's not especially easy to see the runway here because we end up quite far away from it, and there's that nosing up tendency again. The runway is quite a light colour, so it doesn't massively stand out against the scenery, but know approximately where it is. We get our first notch of flaps in. Gear extension speed is the same as full flaps. That's the white arc, 138 knots. But yeah, I'm very, very, very pleased with this aircraft. It's the persistence, the attention to detail. And do go and watch the developers' videos. And this is not the first time that this developer have released this aircraft. I think they've done prepared versions as well as X-plane versions. So it's an aircraft that they know and understand very, very, very well. She is a quirky plane. I think lots of people, when they fly her, think she's not performing correctly, or they think there's bugs. She's just a very, very, very unique bird. There we go, coming on to base leg, getting our landing gear down. And we're going to go high RPM on the propellers. We're not going to put our final notch of flaps in until we're within a distance to the runway that we could glide the final bit of the approach in the configuration that we're in. Came out a little bit early on
500.
Okay, a little bit early coming off of base, but that's okay. Nothing that we can't correct. A little bit low, so putting a bit of power in. Getting ourselves lined up. Okay, that's looking a bit more like it. I think we're within a glide of the runway, so final notch of flaps going in. We want to get to the blue line on the airspeed, which is the single engine climb rate. And I'll start slowly bringing the power out, getting ourselves probably to around 95 knots. But she is gonna touch down faster than you think she should. She's gonna touch down faster than I think she should. There we go, back on the glide slope, taking the power out, slowly taking the power out, starting our flare. And we're down. Getting the flaps out. Avoiding excessive use of the brakes, a little bit of brake, it's not a long runway here. And taking a mixture out for our taxi. Folks, I love this aircraft. I do a lot of flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's genuinely refreshing to fly something that flies a little bit differently. I do have a penchant and a soft spot for twin-engine general aviation aircraft. They are, without a doubt, my favourite aircraft to fly. It's good value for money as well. It's about $40 US for this aircraft, which is less than typically these aircraft have gone for from this developer. I think it's very, very highly recommended. As always, I hope you're very well wherever in the world you are. Stay safe in the skies, and I will see you in my next one.